In Hobbes' view of the state of nature, individual humans, in pursuit of their own self-preservation and their own self-interest, will come inevitably into conflict, a war of all against all. And to escape this condition, they create a sovereign, the Leviathan, who will establish law, a law that must be obeyed. And justice is obedience to this law. Locke wants to argue that in the state of nature, people have rights. They have a natural liberty. They have rights to life, liberty, and property. And it's important for Locke that property comes before the sovereign, that property comes before the social contract by which people in a state of nature create a government. Locke wants to say that property is natural, that private property isn't part of the convention, the agreements that we make, the positive law, that property is deeper, it transcends the positive law, that it has its origins in the state of nature. That's a fundamentally significant claim, and it's part of Locke's liberal outlook on government. Locke says that the purpose of states is to protect these rights, life, liberty, and property. Property pre-exists the state, and the state is created to protect property. So if property rights are positive legal rights that protect our property, this leaves the question exposed. What is property? And in fact, Locke talks extensively about what property is and why people have a right to it. Locke is one of the most important theorists of property and property rights in all of history. Locke says, how can there be property before the state? And to answer that question, he says, well, let's think about what property is. God created the earth, and he gave it in common to all human beings. But individual humans own themselves. And in fact, there's a deep etymology there. Property comes from proprius. What is my own? What is proper to me? And Locke says that human beings own themselves. And so Locke's view has been called a theory of possessive individualism. The fact that you, in a free state, own yourself. You have the rights to yourself. You have ownership of yourself. Locke says that in the state of nature, although property, the earth, is given to humanity as a whole, individuals own themselves, and they begin to mix themselves with nature through the use of their labor. And so follow Locke's reasoning. He says you own yourself, and you mix your labor with nature. Locke says you own your labor because you own yourself, and you should, therefore, own the results of your labor mixed with nature. Locke argues that human beings have ownership, they have property, because they own themselves, they own their labor, and property is nothing else but labor mixed with nature. And so for Locke, humans have rights, they have claims to the things that they make, the things that they have made out of their labor before the state even exists. And the state, in fact, is called into existence in a social contract in order to protect the claims to oneself and to one's labor and to the fruits of one's labor. And so Locke's theory of the social contract is deeply bound up with his view that property is labor mixed with nature, and that you have a right to the things that you have made, that you have done with your labor. And it's a very powerful justification for property rights. The idea that because you own yourself, to be free, you must own yourself. You must also own your labor and the fruits of your labor.